Welcome back to Wiksen Farms here in southeast South Dakota. It's March 18th. We had some really good weather. Everything kind of dried up, snow melted and warmed up. And then we got a bunch of rain and snow, big, heavy, wet snow. But we need the moisture, so it's good, but it's gonna be a while. It's a muddy mess out there. So we got the tractors in for service. These tractors are in. The A310 RT is gonna get all filters and fluids changed. So we are working on that right now, and I'm changing the oil in the bogey wheels and idler wheels in the tracks. I have not done that since I got this tractor, and it's got almost 8,000 hours on it, so who knows in the past how long that oil's been in there. So that'll be the project today. We'll get that started and maybe get the engine oil changed and fuel filters changed. So we will get going on that. On these John Deere RTs, there's 3 bogey wheels on the outside, 3 bogies on the inside, and then there's also the idler up in the front. And they all have a sealed bearing in here, and that bearing just has hydraulic oil in it, but that is gonna get changed. I've done a few already, and they're coming out pretty black and slimy, so it's definitely time to get that changed, because that high guard hydraulic oil is pretty much clear with light brown color. And these little bogey wheels, tractors don't go very fast, but when this thing's doing 21 miles, 22 miles an hour down the road, these little guys are really spinning. So they are good to have some good oil in it. This is a very expensive undercarriage, so we want to take care of it. So we will get these covers off. These covers here just pop off, and the oil drains is pretty simple. There's a center plug. When you refill it, you fill it back up to that center plug, and then it's full. So we'll start popping these off and draining them. Try not to make a big mess, and we'll see how it goes. I usually leave a couple bolts up on top. I just loosen them so the cover doesn't fall off. And then you just break the seal on it. Maybe. Break that seal. It'll start draining like that. And you can see it's pretty black. Time for a change. There it goes. And that's why I leave those 2 bolts up on top, because that would have popped off. Probably knocked my pan off. I would have had a big mess. This just got a big O-ring. It's a little stuck on there now. We'll clean this up. I probably should replace them. I think I can get by without replacing them. They're soft and good yet, so should be good. We'll just clean them up nice. We'll let this drain just for a little bit. And these 3 bogey wheels are the same idea. They're just a little bit smaller. We'll just repeat the process on the way down. It takes a little while, but definitely is something that needs to be done. You can see in there, there's a big, massive bearing in there. That bearing takes a lot of weight and a lot of twisting and turning on these tracks when you Wow, if you heard that, that was a gigantic load of snow that just slid off the top of the shop. I'm hoping I didn't park my truck next to the shop, because that wouldn't be good. Guys should probably go check that, because that would be not good. Anybody that has a big machine shop like this, the heavy snow will build and stick to it, and it'll get to a certain temp, and then it just releases. It just flies off the thing, and if you have something parked underneath there, it is not good. We'll go take a look at it. We'll go see what the snow fell down on. See that whole line of chunks of snow? That all came off this rooftop up here. And I do I do park my truck there quite often, so that was a good thing that my truck is parked down the hill, because that's probably a couple 100 pounds of snow. That'd have been probably the end of the cab. Well, I guess you get lucky sometimes. In the future, I'm definitely remember not to park there after snow. I should know better than that, but I did park there yesterday. That was a good thing. Okay, we'll get back to the tractor and keep knocking those bogey wheels out. So this is all done draining. We got this cleaned up. Take a rag, clean the groove out. We got the O-ring. We got this all cleaned up. I put some oil on it, cleaned it. Got any corrosion that was on there, because we are going to reuse this O-ring, and then it just goes back in this groove. We'll just line this up. You want to be careful not to bump that O-ring out of its groove. Once you get 2 bolts in, it'll hang. That. Now I got them all tight, or snug. I'll take a hand wrench and I'll torque these down and get them torqued. We'll pull this plug and we'll start putting some oil in it. And then to fill these, it's just a drain plug in the middle. You pop that out, just like a rear differential in a car. You just fill it up to the drain plug. When it starts coming out, it's full. So this unit will always be half full, so that bearing's always spinning in there. And as you can see, that's a clear hose. That's what color the new oil is. It's just pretty much clear with a little bit of light brown. And this is what's coming out of it. Pretty sludgy and black. So it was definitely time to replace that oil, because this is a lot of expensive bearings, undercarriage in this thing. So it's definitely time. And I've never done it in this tractor, because we just got this a little over a year ago. So we don't really know the history of what's done, but it had new tracks and bogies put on it at one time. So I would assume that's got new oil at one time. Just finishing up, topping these other bogies off with the pump. They don't take much oil, not near as much as that big one. But it looks like I'm about done. But wait, just when you think you're about done with the side, if you look on the inside of this tractor, look, we got a whole other row of bogies on this side. So I also have to come in here and we'll do all these too. I'm not going to film that because I'll probably be banging my head in here and crawling around the dirt and swearing. So we'll just leave that part out. I showed you the outside part, the easy part, of course. But yeah, we'll get that done. We'll probably get the oil changed in this. Fuel filters, we'll get those changed. I got some new cab air filters. This up in the cab. It's got, I think there's 2 in this. They gave me 2, so we'll see. There's one I've probably never changed, so we'll know what that's going to look like. We got the bogey wheels all changed, oil change in this. Moving on to the fuel filters in this. This got to shut off over here. We shut this off. That way it doesn't siphon back when you take these filters off. Got 2 big filters. This one's got a catch in the bottom. I already changed this first one. Now I'm moving on to the second one. So we'll get this one loose and we will get that pulled off and changed. Hopefully they're not in there too tight. Sometimes they get a little stuck. Oh, that one's coming off good. Just like that. We'll take the rest off by hand. Sometimes they'll spill a little bit. I don't know if this one should be drained down, so it shouldn't make too big of a mess. We'll get that off. We'll get the new one on there. I got this drain off the old one, cleaned everything out. There's a little bit of crud in the bottom, not bad. Got some oil on the O-ring. Got a new filter from John Deere. And I actually priced out filters through a couple aftermarket companies, thinking I was going to save a bunch of money. Took all this time and got filter numbers cross-referenced and looked at Baldwin and Wicks, which are good filters, thinking I was going to save a bunch of money. But actually, by the time I priced them with John Deere, and then we get 15% off in March, it actually was cheaper to go with Deere. So I am just going to stick with the Deere. This got a couple new O-rings on that. I'll get the new O-ring in here. And actually has a new O-ring for that cup, so we'll get that on too. Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I went to all that work to cross-reference all those aftermarket filters. I thought I was going to save all this money. I was pretty proud of myself.
by the time I priced it all out with John Deere, especially when they had their 15% off discount, wasn't any cheaper. So I guess we'll go stick with the Deere ones. And I know Baldwin filters are made just here in Nebraska somewhere near us, so I thought that'd be a good one. But the only thing is they're red. I don't know how that would look on a green machine hanging out. But John Deere was cheaper, so, and we know they work and they're good. We'll stick with those. Got that on here. That bowl on, put an O-ring up on top. Maybe. And I know it says directly on there to not pre-fill filters, but sometimes this does not have a manual pump. You're supposed to just cycle the key to fill the filter. Sometimes it takes a long time, and you end up cranking the motor and it dying a lot, and ends up being, I've had a couple times where it's been a mess. So I do pre-fill for my filters. Super careful. I have a super clean bottle, a super clean diesel, and I always pour it in the outside intake holes, not the main hole. That way, if there would happen to be any dirt in here, it would go through have to go through the filter and not right into the engine. Because that's the main thing with these injectors, the way they are nowadays, you don't want any dirt in them, so that's why they don't tell you not to pre-fill them. But maybe some of you are going to yell at me that I'm doing it wrong, but I do pre-fill my filters. It saves a ton of time trying to get this thing started again, because any bit of air in the system, it does not run. So we'll just pre-fill this a little bit. We'll get this on there. And then before we throw this filter on, we want this filter housing where this screws onto, you can see where the old filter was and all the dirt just on the outside of that. We're gonna want to take a rag, clean rag, and wipe all that dirt off, because we don't want to get any of that dirt happen to get between the O-ring and the surface there, and then we'll have a big leak. So it's always good to clean that, check that before we put that filter on. All right, we got this filter filled. And like I said, I know you're not supposed to fill it. It says right on the thing, do not pre-fill. But I'm very careful how I do it. I'm very specific how I do it. And it's always worked really good, because if you get air in the system, it takes a long time. So don't call the fuel filter police on me, please. We'll get that set. See if that'll start. Maybe. You always want these to screw on really easy. You don't want anything to fight you, because if it's, there it goes. If it's fighting you, it's not going on right. And you strip that, you could have a mess. Like that. Tighten that by hand. Give it the extra turn with the filter wrench. No need to get these super tight. It's good and snug. Don't need a wrench on it, the big filter wrench or anything. We'll go in the cab, turn the key, not to crank the motor, but just turn it on. It'll fire the pump up, it'll cycle. We'll probably do that a few times, and we'll try starting it. I got to change the oil yet, but we want to make sure it'll start with the fuel first. I hate changing a ton of fluids and then going to start it, and then you're trying to start it with new oil that hasn't been circulated, and it's not starting because of fuel. I like to do one at a time and start it. Hop here and get this thing going. Whew. This cab's a mess. But to get this cleaned up. All right, like I said, we'll cycle this key, turn the fan off.
Ring savings now on Frigidaire.
Radio, so I can hear. I can hear the pump going. It's buzzing. Okay. I'll shut it down, let the computer shut off. Service interval has been exceeded. Yes, that's what we're doing right now, taking care of that. Okay, we'll try starting it, see what happens. Let this run a second, get that engine oil warmed up, and then we will change the oil in this thing. And then all we have left is a couple cab filters and an air filter. Clean the cab up. This thing should be ready to do a little bit of tillage and plant in the spring. So I got these filters all wiped down and cleaned good, because if you leave any diesel on them, the dust sticks to them and it look like a mess. And the tractor has 7,697 hours. And it is, what is the date today? We'll just put the month. Put March 21.
So we got the oil all changed in this, and I started up, checked the oil, it's all good. These 8Rs with the 9-liter, one of their problems is this fan drive is like a variable, it's kind of like a snowmobile clutch. And a lot of people don't realize that there's a couple of grease spots on this that you're supposed to grease once a year. And it's not real easy. You gotta take a whole pile of shields off, get in here. We got those all off. We got this one greased, there's 2 pulleys. You actually gotta take a little plug out and put a greaser in, and then pull a plug on the other side of the pulley, and then you grease that until the grease comes out on the other side. But we got this one greased with corn head grease until the grease came out. Now I'm in here doing the fan variable drive pulley. I got a greaser in there, and then I pulled the plug, and then we'll just grease that until grease comes out on the backside. And then we'll put the new plugs in, and we'll button this back up. But I've heard this is something that doesn't get greased very much. A lot of people don't realize it's here. And I've heard it's very expensive when it goes bad because you don't grease it. So I don't know the history in this tractor before I had it for the last 10 years. So we'll get this done. Hopefully somebody's maybe maintained it at one time, because I've heard that's very expensive. So we'll get this grease and we'll get the shields back on, and then a couple air filters, and this thing will be about ready to go. We got the grease zerks pulled out of there and the plugs back in. So now we're just gonna throw the shields back on this thing. So engine air filters replaced, cab air filters replaced. As you can see, when I threw this cab filter down, all the dirt that came out, that thing was dirty, yuck. And that's the air that we breathe in the cab. So that's a good one to get replaced. Other than that, I just had to put some grease in the 3-point on this thing and clean the cab up. And this thing's pretty much done, ready for spring. And it's starting to warm up a little bit again. We had that snow that's melting, so I would guess it's talking rainy and cool this week, but you know, another week or so we might be able to get this hooked up onto some tillage and maybe do a little tillage. So we'll get this cleaned up, and thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully it wasn't too boring showing you some of the maintenance we do on these machines, but there definitely is a lot of off-season work that people don't realize. Keep these older machines going and keep them from breaking. Main thing is the more work we can do now, the less we're gonna break down when we actually need to be out in the field. And that's the main thing, is to keep these things maintained and serviced and ready to go. And it really pays off out in the field. And then you can go 12-hour days and not have to worry about it, and the thing goes without breaking down. Because breaking down the field is not fun. So this is pretty much finished up. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope maybe learned a few things in the video, and we'll see you next video. Thanks.